Well, hello and welcome back to Love and Life Elevated. Where has all the time gone?
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Oh my goodness. We were just talking about when was the last time we got together? It was like a month ago, and we didn't plan on that long of a break, did we?
No, but it's awesome. It's all good. I'm sure you didn't miss us that much.
maybe we more missed you, and we're like, we got to get back and talk to our community.
Yeah, we've been working on some really great stuff and
Yes, we
having
have.
quality family time. We went to a beautiful wedding, and here we are.
I'm so grateful to be back. So today's topic is perfect, right? Because I think this is moving for a lot of people more and more, just based on all the research on loneliness and people searching for community. A lot of great data on the power of belonging.
Well, yes, and truth be told, let's get to why we really wanted to talk about it. We've already mentioned this before. James and I we have a fascination with cults and cult documentaries. And yet we found ourselves down another cult pathway this past week.
Oh my goodness.
And we're so curious, like, number one, are we susceptible? We've mentioned this before, but also what is it about, cult followings? And really what we recognize is that it is a sense of belonging and having that sense of acceptance and belonging. But, the truth be told, that need for belonging traces way back to early human civilization. And that's why we gathered in tribes to protect one another, because if you didn't have that tribe and you weren't belonging to a tribe, you didn't survive.
It's such a big part of everything that I think many of us are finding themselves either really excited about in their present life or up against when they look around the world and say, oh my gosh, I've lost people to certain cultures and certain groups and certain persuasions, politically and otherwise. So we want to kind of talk about what it is that we intend to do here in this community, but also going to the real essence of what belonging brings for us on a mental, emotional, and physical benefit. Because to your point, sweetheart, there's so much data out there that speaks to the fact that people who are in a strong community, a strong place of belonging, they live longer, they live stronger, they have lower incidence of disease, and on top of that, purpose and happiness thrive with belonging.
And motivation.
Ooh, yeah, let's talk about that to get started, because when we started this whole Love and Life Elevated, one of the biggest things we talked about early on was, what keeps us moving forward in our life? What allows us to continue to be motivated? We talked a lot about intrinsic motivation, which I think directly connects with belonging, right? Because you do this for reasons bigger than yourself, and it helps to augment the quality and the way in which the community and the culture shows up.
Well, and I think that having that sense of common values, and if people are like, oh, I've lost my motivation, it's like, well, who's in your corner? Who's supporting you? Where can you go when you need greater support? And that all feeds into that sense, that feeling of belonging. It's being your authentic self. Where can you show up and be your authentic self, and you're not having to conform to like these other values that may or may not really resonate deeply with you? And so I think it's really important to make a list of what it is that is important to you. And as a mom and as a woman, and I'd love to hear, if we're going gender specific here, I'd love to hear your perspective, but like as a woman, I can recall growing up as a teenager and like, oh, you just want that sense of belonging, and it may be how you dress or the music you listen to or the people you hang out with. I mean, we're all familiar with, the jocks, the geeks, the nerds, the emo, goth kids, whatever it is. You find your place where you most belong. And then as a mom, we see, with our kids, with our family members, with our kids' friends and other kids in the in high school, middle school, elementary school, how early it starts with that need to find your group, your sense of purpose, your belonging. And then college too, we see it. And I have personal experience from that with, do you join a sorority? Do you not? What group is there for you? So I do love that you're inviting people in to say like, hey, we can be a place of belonging for you in this community. Use this community to help feed your spirit and share your vulnerabilities and your authenticities.
I think that those two words right for me, sharing vulnerabilities and authenticities and some of our idiosyncrasies. Because what's really incredible as we think about more and more what we want this community to help all of us to achieve is a place that we can come to and really show up as our best self, but also show up in our most vulnerable self. A lot of research speaks to great belonging and how certain cultures thrive when the leadership is not afraid to be vulnerable. In fact, a couple of studies that were done recently where in different companies where they were up against whether the company was going to survive, they needed to pivot to actually keep their business moving forward. Tremendous things happen when the leadership actually says, you know what? I'm scared. I'm feeling vulnerable. I'm feeling I don't know what to do. But I want to just know, how can we as a community, how can we as a culture decide that we're together and we belong together and we're going to move through a difficult time together. And I think that level of vulnerability, there's a saying, vulnerability lets in light. That's exactly what happens to our mind and our body and our physiology. When we witness someone stepping into that foreground and admitting that they need help, or they want to be a belonging into a group that has certain values and certain ways, a code of conduct, if you will. I was thinking about, there's a samurai word, bashobi, which basically means it is a code of conduct around self-discipline and belonging and kind of a moral way in which your compass is aligned with other people around you. And it gives you that sense of hope, but also gives you that sense of courage and compassion that you know you are not alone.
Well, I love when leaders take a stand, and if it's something that I disagree with, it's a real time to do an inner check-in. And we've certainly worked with patients. We have friends, family members who've been working within a culture that was really not aligned with their values and how it impacted them mentally, emotionally, and physically. And so it's great when leaders take a stand because it's courageous and it's vulnerable, but that doesn't mean it's going to align with your team. And if you're a team member who has a leader that is standing for something that is not in alignment with your truth, it's time to move on and find a new team. And so it's very important to take inventory of what those values are for you, and then look for the spaces, places, people, groups that align with those values.
Absolutely. So maybe one of the things that would be really helpful for me, and I'm sure, sweetheart, you'd say the same thing, as we move into this year with this particular belonging community, maybe you could share in the comments section, what are the things that you're looking for in your community right now? If this was a community that you could come to every week, what are the things that really most matter to you? What are the values that you want to feel like, oh, these are my people, this is my place because ... And maybe make a list for us to see what it is that we can continually be stewarding. And yeah, that's a vulnerable place because maybe we're not your people, and that's going to be okay too. But certainly what we want to do is create a highly inclusive, wonderfully warm and vulnerable space that we can all do the best work with ourselves, for ourselves, and the people around us. And that is the essence of strong culture, because strong culture is built on trust. And the more that we can actually feel like this is a trusting place where we can put our guard down, where we can talk about the things that are challenging us, and we can talk openly about our dreams and our aspirations, what it is that we have as a mission and a vision for our lives.
And I feel like I want to share this one personal experience without getting too specific because they could be listening. But and it's relatable, like going back again to being a mom and having gone through a lot of similar experiences with our daughters. But for myself, I've been, say, in a greater group activity that I really love and enjoy. And for years and years, there's certain aspects of this group activity that don't jive with me, right? So whether it's, excessive drinking, as part of it. But this is what's interesting with social media. So I often would see members of this group and they're going way together and they're going here and they're doing this and they're partying and they're celebrating. And there is certainly that inner child, that the little girl in me who was feeling left out. right? Like, oh, I could have been a part of that, but I wasn't willing to ever conform to certain aspects of it, or just that it didn't resonate. So when I really checked in deep to my values, it's like, are your feelings really hurt that you're not involved? Or can you picture yourself in that situation and how you might be feeling like, this isn't me? This isn't really resonating. So before, if you're helping a friend or your kids, and I've had that throughout my life. It's like, why didn't I get included? Or am I not good enough? Why don't I belong? But then doing a really deeper check-in of the values, and then it kind of works itself out. And then you can find the groups and the people and the places that match. They check the boxes. It nurtures your soul, your spirit, and how you come out on top feeling fulfilled. And guess what? I can also celebrate the other group for what it is and how they all jive together.
You are so awesome. I love how you said that, right? Because ultimately,
you've been on the receiving end of that.
Oh my gosh, have I ever?
Hearing like, oh, that's so interesting. Or,
yeah,
I'm not part of that.
Yeah, I'm not getting invited to certain things, and I go, wait a second, you're not invited because that's not your jam,
right?
And
yeah,
and then going from there to, okay, how do we continue evolving our life and not feel, the famous or overly famous FOMO, right? Fear of missing out. And then turning into that cliche now, which is the JOMO, joy of missing out.
Yeah.
And equating that to, well, that joy of missing out is because I honored my authenticity. Mm-hmm. I took a stand for my values. These are the things that I believe in. And it's not a diss or a judgment against the former parts of your world and former groups. It's just that everyone here is on a journey. And I'm a really big believer, and this is something people go, well, show me the data on this. I've yet to see it. I think the more that we honor and really align with our values and really promote our virtues and really live up to what it is that we know is our truth, I believe there's a quantum physics around this, that we will attract more and more of those people, those experiences, that type of belonging, that kind of peace and purpose in our lives. And that's one of the reasons why we're doing this, right? We really believe. I've been doing the treehouse thing for over 10 years, got thousands of people all over the world doing this. And I said, sweetheart, I think there's a lot of people in more of a relationship that would love to see our 30 plus years experience of evolving through different iterations of family of origin story and overcoming certain traumas and certain limiting beliefs to have what we have today, what you and I enjoy today. And that is why Love and Life Elevated needed to happen, so you and I could say, hey, I bet we're not alone. I bet there are people who would really want to be a part of something, whether they're in a relationship, this is part of their iteration presently, but more important, they just want to see a place where we can come and talk about these things that we want to learn more about. We want to feel like we're not alone, and we want to feel that true sense of belonging that's authentically centered right here in our hearts.
Right. So can you think of places where if people are feeling like they don't have that sense of belonging or that knowing what to do or where to go to find their people, their tribe, what are some suggestions?
Well, I think some of the biggest ones that I can see more and more, social media is a slippery slope. It's like, we're using, the irony's not lost on me right now. This is what we're using, and we love it for all the reasons that we can put a lot of good energy out in the world and also receive a lot of good energy. But sometimes it's also a place you go, oh my goodness, I just discovered something and it's about somebody, and all of a sudden that group where I thought I was, all
Listen,
of that.
First of all, it's easy to leave a group on social media. So there's that. And I agree. I do think it can be a really great place. I've seen just within our local Evergreen community, for example, being on that Facebook group, how groups have come out of that serve, it makes it more unique to people, whether it's a book club or I'm in a Women Who Hike group, and I love seeing how people are meet, or I'm new to the area, and how many hands kind of go up for, let's go meet here and there. So I do think that, especially if you're nervous to physically go somewhere for the first time by yourself, it is a good starting place.
100%.
Yeah.
So I think, to your point, one of the recommendations would be, think about a signature strength that you have, a certain value, have a certain intention for the coming year. And there's a pretty good chance there is a group that focuses on that, a community that really wants to nurture that. So I think it's the first place to go. And then from there, really doing also, I like to say, a kind of a fearless friend inventory. Look around your world right now and see where the nurturing's happening and the belonging is absolute. At the same time, discerning whether or not some of those things are changing and evolving and you're going in different ways. And as much as sometimes that can be painful and sad, it also can be really liberating and help you to kind of gain and resource new energy based on the energy going in places where it wasn't being reciprocated. Now it's staying home. It can be nurtured, it can be grown, and then it gets a chance to go back out in the world and really building that sense of belonging.
Right. So I have some other ideas. I'm a lover of learning, and if you live in a place where you have a local art center within, say, 30 minutes that you could get to, I love signing up for art classes, and it's a wonderful place to meet really cool people and different people. So art classes are high on that list, because if you just find, we both love, or not both, but like a group that loves watercolor, or they're wanting to learn, and there's all age groups. I love learning new sports. There's certainly every sport under the sun. Remember when we were like, we should learn curling? And we pull into it was closed or something, but we pulled into the parking lot. There's a curling place not super far from us. We still haven't done it, but I'm open. I don't know if that, maybe if you're a curler, maybe you're our people. I don't know.
Come on, I want to know about curling.
Yeah.
I think that it seems a lot less aggressive as hockey. It seems like it's like an ice sport that may be a little bit more user friendly.
Yeah. Volunteering. I mean, I could go on and on with things where there's not enough hours in the day to do with all the things I'm interested in learning, but signing up for classes, like we should always be learning.
Yes. And maybe bringing it full circle to this something that is so basic, but physiologically so empowering. Look at the power of how it is that when you walk into any environment, what are you carrying with you? I was reading a wicked cool study on strangers walking into environments where kind of people know each other. And if body language, if our shoulders are back and our chest is open and we carry a smile, the first thing that happens with us is that we raise our oxytocin levels, we raise our dopamine levels, we raise confidence and connection right there. Interesting enough, it's beautifully contagious to the room that you just walked in. And I think that's a hard one, right?
It's hard, and also we've talked about energy before, and like feeling the energy of a room. And you and I have been in situations where we're the newcomers to an existing group. It's happened several times.
Yeah.
And then there's been times when we've been welcomed with open arms and like embraced, and we're like, wow, this is a real inclusive group. To another thing where like we walk in the room and no one ever parts their circle, right? And we're just there on the outside, and that's okay. That's not our tribe.
Yeah.
That's not our circle. Yeah. But you know it when you walk, it's like you said, you bring in your full authentic self, and then you read the energy of the room, and you'll know if this is your place.
Yeah, it's not unlike what we talk a lot about in the treehouse. Every time you start your day, you got to start your day as a pregame for the game ahead. The game ahead is going to be connection, belonging, community, authenticity, values, all the things. But you got to start within. Because if you get your own pharmacy up to snuff, you get your own dopamine and oxytocin flowing in you, you're going to carry that into every experience, to your primal relationships, to the ones that are waiting to happen and see how they go. We really do a lot of our inner work. And then that initial 3 to 5 seconds with new people often cements to a certain degree whether or not that relationship, that sense of belonging, that community is going to be built from there. So we have to take a trust walk. We got to be courageous. We got to be open. We got to be the ones who say, I'm going to live inside out versus outside in. I got to start with my best foot forward. I got to lead with love. I got to open my heart and see how that goes, because that will always help you to feel at the end of your day, I stepped up, I showed up, I gave myself permission to step into that world that I want to be curating.
So do we want to kind of close with going back to that idea of cults?
Yeah. Well,
okay, this is why. Because that is what cults thrive on, the vulnerability of the needing of belongingness.
Yes.
The vulnerability of belongingness and the need to belong. And so guess what? You get love bombed up front, right? We want you, we love you. But here's how to recognize when it's a cult. it's like if you don't adhere to every single code of conduct, which actually may be quite exclusive of other human beings, when it's requiring a lot of financial energy and commitment, and it starts to force you sort of to isolate from other aspects of your life and who you are if you're not being able to be authentically you on every level.
And then the one big one that I saw with when we finished last night, when you start to question the authority of the cult, is the first response from the cult to shame you, to diminish you, and to make you feel small. And the only way that they will make you help yourself to feel like you are accepted again is by doing the things that actually help you to feel like, oh, I'm going to give my power away. They are right. Shame is okay. And then you give yourself more and more of your power away. So that is an interesting part of how all this works. And, someday we should potentially do a whole thing on that particular subject, because it is more and more rampant in the world, particularly in certain subsets of all kinds of things happening in this country right now, where vulnerable people, lonely people, people who are questioning their self-worth are finding themselves involved in groups that may or may not be healthy, may or may not be sustainable, and may not be a way in which we can continue to really evolve in a healthy, highly functional, loving, I love to say spiritual way. And I say spiritual meaning that you are feeling very much alive and connected to all things greater than yourself.
Absolutely. And I will let you all know that in that same light of belonging, we are working on putting together a couple of retreats, at least one for this year, probably 2 or 3 next year. So please become part of the community. The best way to do that right now is to subscribe on drjamesrouse.com on his website so you get the newsletters. We really send out on behalf of both of us from that site, I would say. And so then you'll be in gear because they will be limited in space. But we love you all so much.
We do. And
thank you for
I'm so
being
glad
a
you
part
brought
of
that
this.
up, because we have been working on that over the last several months, in particular this last month. We're going to put together a gathering that's going to be absolutely awesome. Awesome food, awesome play, awesome learning, awesome growing, awesome in every way, because you know what it is? We love being around you. We love being around people who are, how should we say, have a vision of hope and possibility, and people who love to grow inside and really feel it is that they have something great to bring to the world. And the more that they're around people who remind them that they are already enough, the more I think those kinds of communities flourish. So thanks for joining us. And it's so good to be back, right?
It is. It's great. Even though I'm really warm in my sweater. I got my workout.
But you look awesome.
Got my workout outfit under
You're going right from here to yoga.
That's right.
So thanks for joining us today. We'll see you next Wednesday.
Peace and blessings all.
Much
Take
love.
care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.